Welcome everyone to the Mitchell Gallery's Jacob Lawrence 3 series of prints. And Alitash is actually the owner and collector and gallerist for the Jacob Lawrence prints that we have, but many other artists and many other of his prints. And so when I talked to Jeff Landau, who is the traveling exhibition service who has allowed us to put these online, I asked him, I said, do you suppose Alitash would be willing to talk to us? And he said, oh, absolutely. And then Alitash, here's full confession. I said, do you think she'll interview well? And I only asked that because some people don't really like to share their experience, and he said, no, absolutely. So we're really appreciative that you would do this for us. So you've told me, and we've talked, many times about your background, and you started in Ethiopia. So did you come to the US to go to university?
No, I came to go to high school.
Oh, okay.
My last 2 years of high school. My father had passed the year before. It was very difficult because I was very close to my father, and I needed to get away someplace that doesn't every day remind me of him. And at 16, I figured that would be going away would be the right thing. And my mother was totally against it, of course. But somehow I landed at a really wonderful school called Chihalwi Academy, of all places in Seymour, Tennessee, believe it or not.
Yeah. Wow. A lot different from Ethiopia.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then you went to college in Oregon?
I went to college in Oregon at Linfield University. It was called Linfield College at the time. It's now a university. And that was a great experience too. In high school, what really made it really fabulous is the fact that the students came from all over the world, from Taiwan, from Thailand, from myself. Most of them were Asian students. I was the only African.
Oops, I'm sorry.
I thought I had turned it. That was Gerald Jackson, a fantastic artist, and we get into a conversation and we don't stop. So let me turn off the phone. I think that's
okay. Maybe he's looking for the link.
No, I don't think so. Gerald is not into the computer thing.
Okay. So yes, so it sounds in a way it was sort of like United World College that we were talking about, where students come from lots of different places. Yeah. And so what did you major in college?
I majored, believe it or not, I majored in history with the emphasis on 20th century China, not knowing one day that China will be, Ethiopia will be overtaken by China, practically. I wouldn't go as far as that, but they have a great deal of influence there.
So how did you make the jump from a history major getting into the music industry?
Well, that's a good question. I was just really, I've always been interested in music. I love music. And in college, through my roommate, I got, turned on through fabulous music, Santana and Earth, Wind and Fire and, all that fabulous stuff, And so I did have an interest in music, and I was actually working for an ad agency at the time, and Atlantic Records was one of their clients. And the secretary told me that there is this job opening at Atlantic Records. Oh my God. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. I would love to work in music. And I think at the time, yes, I had friends that were working in the record business. My best friend, who was my former roommate, was working at Sony Pictures, not Sony Pictures, but Sony Music. My boyfriend at the time was working at A&M Records, so it was natural to like go into that route, and I loved it. And I worked in publicity and promotion, and I was working with Aretha Franklin, the Rolling Stones, Peter Tosh, some of the great jazz, Ray Charles and Solly Rollins, and it was just really amazing. It did not seem like a job every morning going to work. It was fantastic.
And as a sidebar here, some will know this, but when I was reading Alitash's resume and I saw that she worked for Atlantic Records, and we, in a conversation, I said, so Alitash, did you know Ahmet Ertegun?
Yes.
She said, yes. And I said, well, Ahmet Ertegun was a 1944 graduate of St. John's College. His father was the diplomat to Turkey at the time and was died unexpectedly and was well revered. And in fact, they had a fleet of ships that accompanied his body back to Turkey. But he would sneak over to Howard University to hear the jazz musicians and would bring the jazz musicians over to the house there in Washington, D.C. So he was, starting the music thing with his brother. And Ertegun started a scholarship for any Turkish student who wants to attend St. John's College. And so if anybody's seen the movie Ray, about Ray Charles, Ertegun is portrayed there. He wrote Ray Charles's first hit. So we started having all these interconnections, and even with Jeff Landau, and we sort of figured out that we might be third cousins thrice removed or something at the end of all of this. But so it was through the music business that you met Jeff Landau, because his father was a gallerist, but also his mother was into the music business because she was with Lomax.
No, actually, but by the way, going back to Ahmet Ertegun, another connection, I didn't know him personally, but I called his office, talked to his executive assistants a couple of times, but I did not know him personally. But just dawned on me that besides music, Atlantic, him and I have this another coincidence, which was he was in the embassy. And when I first came to America, actually 3 months later, my adopted brother was appointed ambassador to the United Nations. So I also lived in the embassy in New York, in Bronxville, New York. So that's another connection we had that I didn't realize. But I met Jeffrey through his mother, who was my mentor. And I met her through my doctor, who purchased some Van der Zee photographs from her, and my doctor at the time. And he knew I was interested in art. And I was working at KJLH Radio at the time, which is owned by Stevie Wonder. And I had a gallery, the Radio Vision Gallery, which my friend Don Mizell imagined for me to do, because I was really interested in art at the time and not really being, in radio. And the way that I came from New York to Los Angeles, where I was trying to put together an art career, was that Stevie and Don gave me a budget to do a gallery at the radio station, because they had a pretty big hallway and a small budget. And my friend Don Mizell coined it Radio Vision Gallery, and here I am. I had an art space while I was earning a living, and so that worked out really great at the time.
So were you able to choose the works that went into that gallery?
By that time, I had gone to New York, like in 1980. I quit Atlantic Records, moved to New York to be an art dealer. I had no idea what I was doing, absolutely not. I just I should have gotten a job at a gallery, but instead I just wanted to like do it. So anyway, um, yes. So I came back. It was unrealistic to do the art thing in New York, and I met Mitzi Landau, Jeffrey's mother, through my doctor. And it was love at first sight. I remember actually when we went to an opening, and it was Mitzi was talking to Jack Lemmon, and when we walked in, Oz, what's his name? I can't even remember my doctor's name. But anyway, when we walked in, Mitzi stopped talking to Jack Lemmon and said, "Oh, that must be your friend you want to introduce me to," you know. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not a buyer, you know." I'm gonna buy something because I, you know, just as much as I would like, I didn't have that kind of income. But anyway, so we connected from that, and the way actually I have seen Jeff a couple of times at her house, but the way that Jeff and I hooked up is when someone called me about an exhibition that they wanted to travel. And I called Jeffrey and I said, "Hey, you know, there's this exhibition that is already organized, and they want to do a traveling exhibition for it. Would you be interested?" And then, by the way, I said to him, "You know, I have a collection that I really would like to do a traveling exhibition for." And he goes, "Oh yeah," and I go, "Okay, Lama, I'd like to see it." So he came by and he saw, and he organized a traveling exhibition of my collection, not the one that you have, the Jacob Lawrence, but other various artists, African-American artists, and including Skender Bogosian, the Ethiopian painter. And we've been going ever since. And I would say that was, when was that? Around 2000.
So how did you become, I mean, you knew Jacob Lawrence's work, obviously, but how did you get involved in representing him? And
okay, so that happened. I met Jake at an exhibition Samela Lewis, Dr. Samela Lewis, organized. It was at a bank in Los Angeles, in the lobby of the bank. And I remember it clearly. I think it's called Gibraltar Bank. And Jake came for the opening, and I met him then. And we must have exchanged address. I wrote him and said, you know, I was just starting. Okay, this was like, again, in the early 80s. And I was just starting. And I wrote him saying how wonderful it was to meet him and stuff. And I didn't really expect to get a response back from him. And I think I must have mentioned I would very much like to be able to offer his work to my clients or something like that. I don't know what I said other than, you know, it was great to meet him. And much to my surprise, he wrote me back. And at the time I had a box, a PO box number, and I went and opened my mail, and I'm coming, and he had a very distinctive handwriting, which at the time I don't know, but today if I received something in the mail, I would spot Jake's handwriting. And I opened it, and it was a letter from him saying how much he enjoyed meeting me. I was in awe. I mean, I was just like stunned, and I started to cry. I started to cry because here is this guy that I just held at this high esteem. And I was just starting out at the time that he took the time to write me and say how equally, you know, pleased that he was to meet me was just stunned me. And then afterwards, I guess that's when maybe I asked him, you know, can I work with him or something? I cannot remember what I must have said, but he sent me a few prints in the mail. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, he sent
Wow.
me a few prints in the mail. And so it turned out the first work of art that I sold was a print by Jacob Lawrence. And I sold it to, her name is Mary Jane Hewitt. She was one of the founders, along with Samela Lewis, the founder of the Museum of African American Art that is here in Los Angeles. And that's how the relationship started. And afterwards, of course, we kept on communicating, and I sold more of his work. And then he introduced me when his print, the Toussaint Louverture series started. He completed that print. He started with the General. Okay. And he introduced me to the publishers, Cliff Ames, Sparkling Ames, Sparkling Ames Corporation, two men that were that underwrote it. And since he introduced me to them, they, of course, were interested. They offered me to work with them in selling the prints. The print was only one, the General. Then it went so well that he decided to do another one, which was Birth of Toussaint.
So that's why they were not done in any kind of sequence. In terms of the narrative.
Right. No. So and it was supposed to only be one. And they kept on, every time he does the third one, oh, this is going to be the last one, they say, and then it ended up being 15 prints, Yeah.
They're really strong. We were discussing that this morning with a group, and these, and they're stencils, of course, because they're silk screen, but these strong geometric shapes, and they do go together like puzzles. And, the registration, and of course, him having the master printers to facilitate that, but still his understanding of shape and color and how that all comes together is just absolutely amazing. And as I mentioned to you earlier today, we had an exhibition last January from the Hechinger collection. John Hechinger owned a large hardware store chain that was big primarily in the mid-Atlantic, but the headquarters was just outside Washington, and so he collected artwork related to tools. So he had two Jacob Lawrence prints, men at work. And for those of you who remember the gallery, they were in the large gallery on the short wall at the end, and they were the last two prints on the wall. Now, I can remember that because it was a year ago. I'm not sure I could remember placement of other artworks from years past, but you can see the men were sawing and putting wood together. And Alitash and I were talking about that, and we were talking about the Genesis series, that there was a carpenter's toolbox that moved around. And so Alitash, do you mind sharing that story about the chocolate tools?
Oh, yes. Well, before I get to that, I want to emphasize that Jake, that's what friends called him, was only 21 years old, by the way, when he did the series of the Toussaint Louverture series, which was purchased at such a young age by the Baltimore Museum of Art. So 21 years old, and he was already recognized on a museum level. So yes, Jake collected old tools. And I'll never forget, when was that? I guess it was somewhere in the 90s. I was at Dean and DeLuca in New York City. And I saw these tools, chocolates made of tools. And I go, oh my God, Jake would love these. I got to get these. Okay, I got to get those. And of course, they were each was I don't remember, $6, $7 each. And by the time you get, 10 of them, it gets pricey. And I said, yeah, he's worth it, of course. So I got my little tools, and I came home, and I got 2 days later or something, because I was staying at an apartment of my girlfriend, and she has a dog, And she has 2 apartments. My friend Cheryl has 2 apartments, and I usually stay in the little one. And her dog always comes to visit me, Huxley. And I came home and I see kind of these chocolate looking things all over. And I go, what in the world is that? And I see the dog had eaten the entire chocolate
Oh gosh.
that I was going to send
Oh.
to Jake. So I said, oh my God. Well, at first I was like, okay, so much for that. But I decided to go back and get some more. And then after I got it, and I said to him, I called Jake and I told him what happened. And he loved the story so much. And he goes, wait a minute, let me put Gwen on the line. I want her to hear the story. And I actually put the story again for Gwen, and that was very charming. I love that story.
Was he a chocolate eater or just
I don't know if he was a chocolate eater actually, but he is a tool collector, and he loved it. And I wanted to ask him, to be honest with you, are you going to eat those chocolates, or are you going to keep them in your tool?
I'm sure the dog didn't appreciate them quite as much as anybody else would have. Oh, that's so did he visit you very often? Did he come to LA or?
Well, I visited him a couple of times, and we have, maybe we'll show photos of that. And he visited Los Angeles when there was an exhibition of his work at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman narrative paintings. And so when he came, I did have a dinner party for him. And I also had an exhibition in my private space of the Toussaint Louverture series. Yes. And in fact, during that time, I also had an exhibition of his Genesis series at the Watts Tower Art Center in Los Angeles. It's a city-run facility. And those prints, the Genesis prints, were actually, they belonged to the Broadway Federal Savings and Loan, and it's now called Broadway Bank. And it was, I believe, in Los Angeles, the oldest Black bank in Los Angeles. And the headquarters was built by Paul Williams, the
musician?
Architect.
Architect, yeah.
Yes, who designed homes from Lucille Ball to Frank Sinatra and whatnot in those days. So what happened was in the 1992 Los Angeles riot in South Central Los Angeles, the bank was destroyed. And these prints were in the vault at the bank. I believe it was in the vault. So the prints, it was destroyed. Okay, so Karen Hudson, who is Paul Williams's granddaughter, who was at the time the person that purchased the prints, she called me and she goes, Alitash, you will not believe it. The entire Genesis series portfolio is gone, destroyed, water damage. The portfolio box was all like crinkled. Okay. So we were, I stood there and I didn't know what to do. So anyway, we just opened it like this carefully. The box is all scrumpled. And would you believe that the water damage was all around the edges of the print, but the images untouched? Karen and I looked at each other and we said, if this is not Genesis, I don't know what is. I just thought it had to do with the creation.
Yes, there was divine intervention.
There was divine intervention, absolutely. So I said to her, but so then I could see, since the images, I'm talking about untouched, not even one spot on them. It's a miracle. So I went took it to the paper restorer, and she restored it.
Mhm.
And it was exhibited at the Watchtower Art Center. That's another story that Jake loved. And I said to him, you have to come and see this, this, of course, you knew about Paul Williams, the architect.
Mhm.
And then we had, we had a program with children. And at first, it was very difficult to get him there because LACMA had enough programs for him.
Mhm.
And I said, and I fought and I fought. And then finally I said to Jake, Jake, do you want to go to the Watchtower Art Center to see this stuff? Because they're telling me you don't have the time. And he said, yes, I do. So, well, then, we
That's
went.
the image that you sent to me.
Yes.
Okay, and we can share those anytime. Just just let me know. Was he, what kind of person was he? Quiet, or was he very outgoing, or what kind of what was his personality?
Wow, you know what? He is very engaging in conversation, and he has a way of turning everything, at least in conversation, even when you want to kind of bring it, because a lot of the work that he has done is history, some of it not such good history. It's about struggle, but he always had such a peaceful way of ending a conversation. Everything is okay. It's okay. It's he just brings the universality, the humanness of any situation. It's like, if we're talking about, as an example, what goes on in with the narrative of African American history here, he would say, how that in itself it is a universal story, because suffering goes all over the world in one form or another. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Some more than others, yes. But anyway, like for instance, as an example, he designed the 1972 Munich Olympic. He's one of several artists who did a poster for that, designed a poster for that. And I was kind of curious, this was in Germany, in Berlin, Germany, right? The 1968 Olympics. No, 1972 Olympics. And I said to him, all the runners in the poster on the track, it's only Black runners. There were no, white runners in his image. Yeah. And I go, but Jake, this isn't Germany. Weren't there some white people that were, in the race? And he goes, yes, there were. He goes, but they were way in the back, so I couldn't fit them in the painting.
That's a great story.
Oh my God, that was so, he's got a way of just a very humanistic quality he had, incredibly humanistic,
Well, in fact, we were talking this morning, and what I've studied of his series is that they're a chronology, and for himself, being part of that great migration, with his own family, and Harriet Tubman and Genesis, and all these follow a narrative, of history, but the Hiroshima doesn't. It's very much at the moment, and I've said earlier, that series really disturbs me, as it should. They all do, but that one in particular, because the scenes are just of everyday life and not pointing out any particular ethnicity, and that it could happen, that experience could be any one of us sitting and drinking our tea or reading the newspaper or talking to the person at the next desk. And I felt that he really did capture the essence of Hersey's narrative and just depicting the moment. Yeah. And I just wondered, did he sort of carry, his things are so thoughtful. it seems to me like did he carry these things around in his heart and his head? You know, I mean, that's a great burden. You know, sort of grieving for the world in a way over these events. I mean, he's an educator and he says he's a storyteller, but also, you know, that's a great burden to be carrying this around. And did he discuss that at all? Did he feel that kind of internal burden?
No, I don't really remember discussing this with him, but I have a feeling because he puts it out in his work
Mhm.
that, and he doesn't seem like somebody like that. He
Mhm.
seems like somebody who's very um zen, you know, very kind of at peace with himself. He had a fabulous relationship with his wife, Gwen, who
Mhm.
put her own career sort of in the back burner to support him. That's for
Mhm.
sure, you know, for a long time.
Mhm.
Um, and, you know, I mean, um, in the early part of his career in the 40s, you know, he had a nervous breakdown.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
luckily that he was um, you know, they got married in 1941.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
So she was with
had
him.
this, yeah, he had this. She was very, very, very hands-on caring for him, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and they were such a great couple. If you called on the phone and he's always like, wait, let me put Gwen on the phone. I know he would like to hear what's going on.
Could I share the screen and show that first photograph of them that was taken for Vogue?
On by Irving Penn,
Yeah,
yes. Oh
it's
my
stunning. Let me go
God,
to screen share here,
absolutely.
and
Yeah, that's one of
let
my
me go
favorite.
to the
Yes, 1941, 1947.
1947. It's just stunningly beautiful.
It is.
Um,
Absolutely. So
and
that's a
so this was done in 47 for Vogue
yes,
magazine, and just absolutely stunning.
yes.
And what was
7
the
years. This is 7 years after they gotten married, so they don't look like they have the 7-year itch, do they?
not at all. So what was the incentive for the photograph for Vogue? What precipitated that? Do you know?
That's a good question. I have a feeling. That's a good question. It might be the occasion of the his when was his Museum of Modern Art exhibition? Uh,
Oh,
7. I wonder what that would be a good one. Well,
mhm,
that would be up to the audience to research. I'm sure there's an article about it. And
mhm. Well, and especially for an African American couple to be in Vogue magazine for
yeah,
that period
47.
is, you know,
Yeah,
amazing.
yes,
But
absolutely.
boy, it's just a stunning
It is.
photograph of him, and
It is.
that's why I thought it was a good time to sort of to talk about that. Do you want to show some of the other images? Or,
Yes.
maybe okay. Let me go to some. These were things that Alitash sent to me of her personal um, collection. So let me go back through. And this is Gwen and Jacob in their Seattle home.
Yes.
So so you went to Seattle to teach at University of Washington, but what made that transition? I mean, that's moving all the way to the West Coast. That's a different migration unto its own.
Yes. That's a good question. I cannot answer that question other than um,
Because he was there for more than 10 years, I think.
was there for almost like I think 17 years.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
really liked Seattle.
Mm,
He
mm,
really liked. I think it was, you know, the quiet place. It
mm,
was a quiet place. He's everybody in Seattle knows Jacob Lawrence. He's like
mm,
the most important artist of of the Northwest.
Mhm.
And here is that's a CCH Pounder, an actress, a very talented actress. We went to Seattle together, and we went to visit them right here in their home. That's Gwen next to her, and myself and Jake.
Yeah, Gwen has very striking features, and you see that in the portrait that was done by Augusta Savage. Augusta Savage was who Jacob Lawrence studied with as a young man at the.
Correction. Somebody just, in fact, not a trustee, somebody involved very much with the Museum of Modern Art just texted me the Jake's exhibition at MoMA was 1944.
Okay, good. Oh, good. Thank you for that clarification.
That was
good. You know, the miracles of social media. But it seems to be a good likeness, and really, really does display her cheekbones, you know, that beautiful long face and those distinctive cheekbones, which I think is part of what makes that Irving Penn portrait so beautiful, because he catches that in the light.
This is in their home, this sculpture of Gwendolyn Knight. This is before she was married to Jake. It was done in 1934, 35.
Mm-hmm.
And Augusta Savage, who was also her art instructor as well as Jake's at the Harlem
art workshop.
Yeah.
So is that where she and Jake met then?
Yeah.
Absolutely. An early a childhood romance.
Absolutely. And this is the entrance of their home. I took that picture. Mm-hmm. I love that. Mm-hmm. Look how content they look. They're just absolutely, you know, they did not have any children. So they were, you know, very, and this is a dinner party that I had for Jake when he came to the LACMA exhibition opening. And that is next to Jacob Lawrence is Dr. Leon Banks, a fantastic pediatrician who many adults running around who he delivered and or not delivered, but treated. And he's a major collector. Gwen to his left, and Sandra Lang, another friend and an art patron. Next to her is Bonnie Boswell. And then facing us, looking this way, is Howard Fox, who was curator of modern and contemporary art at LACMA. And that is Lisa Vijos. She was associate in the Department of Education at LACMA.
And what was the occasion for the dinner?
This was June 11th, 1993. And it was just the fact that Jake was in town for the opening of the Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman exhibition at LACMA. And so before he left town, I had a book signing for the catalog of the exhibition. This is in my balcony at my space. That's a good picture of him.
And you know what's interesting? He uses blue a lot, you know, in his prints. And this sort of primary blue.
That's true. That is true. And this is.
So this was the book signing.
Yes, the catalog signing we had on a Saturday. And that's my nephew.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
And
okay, these are the prints from the Broadway Federal Savings and Loan Collection on the wall that were damaged during the Los Angeles
riots.
Yes, and then Jake, you know, there were so many kids. And at one time, let me tell you, at first I was thinking, oh my God, all this fighting I'm doing to get Jake to the kids, they don't even care about, an artist, And you will not believe how much the children just embraced him. At one time, I couldn't find him. We were getting ready I was looking for him and I couldn't find him. And somebody said, well, he might be, I think, under the whole bunch of kids. Maybe he's over there. So I went in there. They had surrounded him. And I go, my God, Jake, what are you doing here? And I said, and look at you, you're sweating. He was sweating with all these kids. And he goes, yeah, one of the kids asked me if I was crying.
Well, obviously he was easy to be around, the kids that
surrounded him all over. And so education, I must say this, education in America, okay? And at the time, my nephew was going to school, this fantastic school in Santa Monica called New Road School, very smart kids, no, not smart kids, but, they get the right education. Mm-hmm. And here is, the Watchtower Art Center. It's in the hood. You know what I mean? I'm sure that schools are not the best in that area and stuff. And so when children were asking him questions, okay, had these kids been exposed to, the right school, the questions they would be asking would have been different. For instance, I remember one of the kids asked, have you ever been a security guard?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so that's the kind of question they were asking. This is about the education of young people. If you went to Santa Monica or any other schools, kids of that age would be asking different questions. Trust me. Mm-hmm. You understand what I mean? Because they're exposed. Yeah. They're taught. I had to add this one in.
Wow, that's really tale telling. So besides representing Jacob Lawrence, I mean, your roster of artists is impressive. I mean, Betty Sayre and Charles White and Jim Dine and Kehinde Wiley and Romare Bearden. I mean, the list is just, like reading People magazine, and so how you're reducing your collection now, as I understand it, but are you expanding in other ways or other artists that you're kind of lusting after, or?
Well, I must say, these are all artists that I've worked with. Yes. But with Kehinde Wiley, I didn't, right when he was right out of Yale, he came back to Los Angeles, which is his hometown. And I was introduced to him actually by the actress CCH Pounder, who you was exactly. And so I didn't really have any exhibitions or anything of his, but I did gave him his first studio in New York City on 27th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. And it was the studio of the artist Jay Milder. And Jay was moving out of the studio. Kehinde was moving out of his studio museum in Harlem artist and residency program. And he did not have any place to go. He didn't have a studio. And I happened to be at the Studio Museum in Harlem the last day of his residency, and he was packing. And I had subletted this place from Jay Milder, because I was kind of thinking about moving to New York, and I was going to, have this space. And I decided, I changed my mind about doing that. And instead of moving to New York, I offered it to Kehinde.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he was there for about a year. and his career took off from that space. I want you to know, because Jay Milder used there was a little space it was a loft in New York. He had a small space that he kept because he had moved to outside of New York. I forgot what the name of the town is. So he just needed a place to crash when he's in New York City. And he would say to me, Alitash, who is this artist that you have here? He says curators are coming in and out every single day, you know?
Wow. Wow.
Yes, exactly. So,
well, we have a chat site here. We've got a number of people that are signing in and saying hello. Yvonne Hutchinson and
wonderful.
Connie Harrington is in LA, so she wants to see your collection. Her grandson attended St. John's College, so
Wow.
smaller after all. So if you have questions, you can write in on the chat site, and I'll put Alitash on the hot seat to answer all the questions. That's the nice thing about an interview in doing all of that. But this was just such a pleasure to work with you on this, and we hope that we'll have some of your collection, down the line. We're working on that. But of all of your artists, Jacob Lawrence was among your first.
Yes.
Who followed after that?
Well, to be honest with you, okay, so the first artist that I met, and I was about 13 years old, was an artist by the name of Skender Bogosian. Really?
An artist.
Absolutely. He was a pioneer. I mean, he was the first modern contemporary African artist who was on the scene, one of the first. And he was definitely the first the Museum of Modern Art purchased work of art from. And I don't know if this is actually correct, but I was told David Rockefeller himself bought the painting and donated it to the museum. He is in the Smithsonian collection. He was really a remarkable artist. So I met him when I was 13. It was the first opening I went to. Okay, I had no idea about this. So actually, when I first started out being interested in being an art dealer, I thought my idea was just to represent Skender, nobody else. Okay. So that didn't work out the way that I planned. First of all, there wasn't enough work that he was supplying, and it was a little too it wasn't really an easy work to sell, because it's very intricate. And I mean, I have an audience in Los Angeles of people who've really never paid attention to art. Okay, at least not in terms of putting their money in to purchase art. So I don't know how it is. Well, that goes back a long time. I saw the work of Romare Bearden at the home of a friend of mine by the name of Charles Stewart, who now lives in Paris. He had 2 or 3 from the Prevalence of Ritual series in his home. And I remember loving these works, but I didn't even know that. I didn't think he was a Black artist or a white artist. I didn't know. This is really pretty much right after I graduated from college. So I didn't really know the difference between, a print, a painting, whatever, So anyway, one day he calls me. This was in the late 70s, and he said, "Would you like to come to an opening for Romare Bearden?" And I go, "Romare Bearden, who's that?" And he goes, "Oh, the artist whose work you love so much." And I said, oh my God, that artist. I said, he's alive? And he goes, yeah, he's going to be at the opening. Oh my God, I cannot believe it. I could not believe it. I thought he was like a Vermeer or a Gauguin or somebody like that, gone. So anyway, that's when I first heard about Romare Bearden.
Mhm.
And then fast forward, it's actually June Kelly, who was at the time his manager, who introduced me to a guy by the name of David Zellman, who was working for a publisher that printed, did Bearden's lithographs at the time in the 70s. He did a series of lithographs. It's called London Arts in Detroit, Michigan. And I called the guy up. In those days, you could do something like that. Today, it would be crazy to think that this could happen. So I called him up and I go, oh, June Kelly told me to give you a call. I'm very interested in Romare Bearden's work, and I would like, and I have an art gallery. I'm a private art dealer. I'd like to, offer these to my clients and stuff. And he goes, oh, okay. You want me to send you some? I said, yes. So he sent me a bunch of prints.
Wow. Wow. Rags to riches.
And that's how I got started.
Well, there's there's some good questions here, maybe pertaining to this, Alitash. Someone asked, so what's your next move from here? What do you want to do?
Really, my dream now, honestly, and I believe in dreams, and dreams do come true because many have. I want to establish. Sounds like a serious endeavor. I would like to do an artist in residency program for African artists, bringing them here, exposing them, introducing them to people, taking them to museums, meeting curators, artists. Exposure, travel is so important for everybody, but particularly for artists. And I'd love to, and I would like to take American artists to Ethiopia. And I'm hoping that I could turn my family home in Addis Ababa into a space where it can be turned into that kind of space where artists can come and work and meet other artists, and also maybe have a relationship with the artists that are coming to maybe do a workshop at the art school in Ethiopia, because it's one of the oldest art schools in Africa. It's called the Aleph. It's named after an Ethiopian painter by the name of Aleph Salam, who used to teach at the school. And now the art school is part of the university.
Well,
So
someone writes, actually, Jonathan Scott writes greetings and says, if Lawrence were alive today during Black Lives Matter and COVID, what do you think he would paint?
That's a very good question. Jonathan Scott is calling from Kigali, Rwanda. Hello, Jonathan. I'm so happy that you're on. A very good question. Yes. Oh, God, I wish I could answer that question. Well, you know what? He would have been very advanced in age, and I see like people like Smela Lewis, Betty Saar, who I am in touch with almost on a daily basis, not daily, weekly maybe. You know, they were art activists. They poured their feelings, their concerns through their work, right? And it's so interesting. So now I see these ladies, and they're very excited about what is going on. But at their age, it's like they leave it to to this generation to do the
Yeah.
artists to do their thing.
Yeah.
They've already done it.
Yeah, to pass
Yeah.
the baton.
Yeah. But
And-
they're decided that the struggle continues.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
struggle continues, and that's very, very exciting. The same way Congressman John Lewis was, it's like he died seeing that the struggle continues, that he has passed the baton to the next generation.
Mhm,
I hope to God there's no next generation to pass this to,
mhm.
that it is
Yeah.
taken care of.
Yeah, that this is done.
Yeah.
And related to that, Eric Barkley writes, did you ever discuss the migration series with Lawrence, and specifically his desire commitment to have the series sold intact and not separated? And do you feel that he would have preferred to have had his later series shown together as well? Well, the migration series actually was negotiated by Edith Halpert, but
Right. He spoke about, oh my God, he spoke about her so often. Very.
And if I can interject, in fact, I passed this on to one of our board members, gave me the book. It's called A Girl with a Gallery. It's the story of Edith Halpert, and she really was the champion for American artists in the early part of the 20th century, when people who had money were buying European artists. And so she promoted Jacob Lawrence and really put his name on the map. And so she negotiated that 60 series, but 60 prints. But going later on with what's being asked here, did he prefer to have his later works kept intact, or did he feel that each one stood in a story by itself?
I really do not know, but I think I know one thing about Jake, and it's like he didn't really care about things like that too much. You know what I mean? I mean, I think for him, it was that it was done. And then where it goes from there, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the kind of personality that he was. It's like everything goes, whatever it is, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he is. He really, I mean, that's just, I can't even imagine Jake saying, oh, I don't like that to happen. He's so cooperative, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you suppose it's because he'd already said what he had to say?
Yeah.
And then it's just released. I mean, you said it's kind of a zen. And, that's really admirable. It's hard to let go sometimes when you have a vision about things, and that he was so willing to let people kind of take their own spin on it insofar as what goes together and what gets separated. That's really pretty admirable. To be that open.
I want you to know this people like these kind of informations. I sold a painting of Jacob Lawrence called Curtains, I think in the 90s. And on the back of the painting, it was $174. Yes, painting was done, I think, in 1946. Isn't that great?
Oh, wow. And it's an odd number. It's not even 150, I think
it was, anyway, it was $100 and something. It may not have been like some, and I think it was 74. And I was just like stunned, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And Chanel Compton, hi Chanel, she's the director over at the Banneker Douglas Museum here in Annapolis, and I actually spoke about her, and she said she would love to help you in your endeavor for the Artist in Residency and Cultural Connections Transformities. So I'll make sure that when you come to Annapolis, as you will, that we'll connect.
After we go have Ethiopian restaurant.
Yes. Yes. There's some in Baltimore and there's some in Silver Springs. So I don't think there are any other questions. Plenty of people sending greetings, and thank you so much to all of you for taking time on this California weather afternoon in Annapolis on December 13th to spend this time with us. And Alitash, thank you so very much for your generosity and sharing this information and the time that we've spent in preparation, and which is led by Lori Saladin, our fearless leader. So thanks to our communications team and so many people involved to make this happen. So we look forward to putting something together from your collection, which we're very excited about, and hope to do that in person and on the walls, and not just be pointing to a screen with a pointer on it. And so I guess we'll conclude this webinar, and thank you all. If you have questions, you can write to me at the Mitchell Gallery, and thank you all very much.
I think Jake will be so pleased with this. He really would, that he's being remembered.
Good. I'm glad you felt like we've given him
I think